Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Nuts and Bolts, your Game On Aus weekly esports show. I am Str8JaktJim.
Hi, and I'm Natalie. How
Hey,
you how are you going straight?
I'm doing good. Good. Little bit tired, but I had a nap this afternoon, so I'm all good. Got more energy, ready to go because there's lots to talk
Oh,
about tonight.
I like that. I
Mm,
like that. I heavily have relied on some Coke no sugar. I had like 500 ml of that, so we'll see how we go.
nice, nice. And hello, Kaiju Kai. Thank you for dropping in tonight. So first up, we got some TFT news. So over the weekend, TFT Reckoning was held in the Oceania region, and we have a champion for the
We do.
yeah. Hey,
Sorry,
that's
cutting
like
you off
that's
there.
okay. Go.
It was a huge weekend of action for TFT because not only did we see the Oceanic finals, but the North American finals were this weekend as well. So, if anybody was following along with both, you had the North American stuff happening in the morning on the weekend, and then you had the Oceanic stuff going on in the evenings. So you could have a nap in the middle of the day and then watch more TFT. Um,
Sounds
so
like heaven.
in it was actually a really nice chill way to spend the weekend, I've got to be honest. Um, so for the Oceanic region, we have a finalist who's going to be representing us in Worlds, and that's Escher. So congratulations to
Woo.
Escher.
Well done,
Yeah,
Esha.
it was very tough fought final. It was actually looking for a long time like Chunga was going to take away the lead position. Um, they had the top eight on the last day, and Escher Chunga was performing quite well with the Spellweaver comp that had been doing really well with, just Vel'Koz like exploiting everything. And everybody was kind of staying out of his way. So one thing, if you're not familiar with TFT, is that you have builds and you compete for resources for those builds. And so there's a bit of strategy of whether you stay out of the way of other people and you kind of respect their space and let them do their ultimate build, or if you try and build on top of them or whatever you want to do. But yeah, Asher ended up outmaneuvering. He just had a bit more, variability with his comps and was able to pull away with the lead and take out the victory, which was exciting. Um, Also, really exciting that it's another esport where we have a guaranteed world spot for the world's
It's amazing.
tournament. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. The guys have really shown, I think, over the last few seasons that we can compete with the best in the world, and we certainly earn that spot. So it's nice that we don't, yeah, have to directly compete with North America for one of
Mhm.
their places.
That's good. Yeah, I know it was a pretty close one as well. Was reading going into the final lobby, there was 2 points separating four players. Like that is
Yeah.
crazy close.
Yeah, so how the scoring works is if you so they play 6 games over the final day, and if you get first, you get 10 points. If you get second, you get 8, and then it goes down from there. So 7, 6, 5. So it really makes a huge difference if you can pick up a couple of firsts because you get that couple points leeway. So if you even falling in the middle of the pack, you're gonna have that extra breathing room. So definitely a tactic to maybe try a few more risky comps to try and secure that first rather than just trying to average out to be at the top of the pack.
For sure, for sure. And so I think World's coming up in October sometime. I'm not sure if they've announced a date.
November, I think.
November. Mm.
And I haven't seen the location formally documented anywhere, but
Mhm.
99% sure it's going to be in Europe as well. So my assumption is probably Iceland, considering that's the current trend. But we'll
Mhm.
have to wait and see for the official announcement on that to see where it lands. I know with TFT there was a discussion as well about whether it was going to happen in China, but I believe it's similar to League of Legends that they're moving away and looking at Europe to host for the Worlds as well.
Mhm. Yep. And speaking of League of Legends, we now have the full roster confirmed for the worlds that are happening there. And like I say, they're heading to Europe as well. It got moved from China. Um, it feels like Iceland's probably going to be the spot that happens in again, but
Mm.
nothing confirmed just yet. Just a little bit of rumors at the moment. But in for Australian League of Legends viewers, of course, we had the LCO final a couple of weeks ago. So
We did.
we were observing a day off Twitch last week, so we didn't get to talk about it. But geez, what a win for peace that was.
Oh, it was absolutely incredible. I don't think anybody would have been betting on Peace to come away with the clean sweep for the final. That was just insane that they ended up with the 3-zip,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think it was necessarily by any major mistakes by Pentanet. I think that Peace just worked out their game plan and executed exactly the way they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to.
Yeah, the third game, like the first half was Pentanets, and then there was one team fight that Peace ended up winning, and it just tipped the whole balance. And all of a sudden, Peace were on the march, and it's just they were a formidable team. And full credit to them, there was nothing that PGG could do to stop them. So, fingers crossed, we'll get another team that gets out of group stages at an international event this time.
I always, assume Peace are going to do well when Babip gets on Italy. So
Mm.
that's what we saw in the finals as well.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we'll get to see some of that action at Worlds as well. It'd be interesting to see if Peace kind of pull in some of the strategies they've been using throughout the season, or if they try something different for
Mm.
Worlds.
Yeah, you don't quite know what you're going to see, and I mean they've got Tally who's been there a couple of times before as well, so
Mm,
there's some experience there, and the way that they're playing is just very encouraging. So, sending them all the OCE love and hope that they can do better. They join. Hang on, I'm going to count up how many we got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 22, 22 teams. That doesn't quite sound right. Maybe I need to
yeah,
double check my facts because actually, isn't it?
do a quick fact check while we've got a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah, I did.
But it is,
I
I,
did.
I
I did have a look at a little website, and I think it was like Liquipedia, and usually
oh,
they're
just
pretty good. But
yeah.
yeah,
I
20.
think what I found most exciting about watching some of the other regions was that G2, they're a team that have made it to Worlds every year that they have existed as a team
Oh
and have been
wow.
playing in League of Legends. And this is the first year where they didn't qualify. So that really speaks to what's going on in that region, because they had Mad Lions qualify, and I can't remember who else from that region as well, but
Um,
a couple of other kind of up and coming teams, or teams that have been in the world scene but certainly for
mhm.
not as long, managed to sneak that victory. So it's going to be interesting. I think G2 not being there really changes the landscape, and
Mm.
potentially how teams are going to be playing against each other.
I think I found another source for a list of teams, and it all seems to be the same names as I've got, but it does say that Vietnam aren't attending, which they didn't do at MSI either.
Oh,
So that could be a
the
reason right
miss
there.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a shame that they
Mm,
can't make it again. But you understand it. Some countries might not, be wanting their players to go out and come back in again, or
mm.
they might have, really excessive quarantine requirements. Who knows,
Yeah.
what might be
Well,
the.
we had it ourselves with the Six Mexico Major, where the Knights
Mm,
decided not to go for, and I didn't hear the reason for that, but like you can only assume that it's either because of the restrictive requirements to come back in, we have to hotel quarantine for a couple of weeks, which
mm.
the org would have to pay for, which is a couple of grand per person that goes, and they might have just made the financial decision that it just they couldn't afford it.
Yeah,
Mm,
I mean, I think you're absolutely right that there's lots of reasons, and
mm,
not that we would ever hear publicly about it as well, but certainly there might be some political
mm,
maneuverings going on as well that could be impacting the decisions that teams and countries are making. So
mhm.
it's a shame that we can't have all the best in the world representing in the same place, but I still think it's pretty darn epic that we can have an international event at the moment.
Oh yeah.
For most of the world is going through a fourth wave of COVID, and we're
Mhm.
still managing to make it work.
Yeah, it's amazing to see, and even like on a smaller scale, I know you here in Perth, which is where Pentanet.gg is based. For the LCO final, they've hired out a cinema, and we were able to go and watch it there, which was really cool. And just being amongst other Pentanet fans and just chilling, chatting, and have a great time.
Oh man, I'm always secretly hoping that like the World's events are going to be in a region that's closer to our time zone, so I'm not having to stay up till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
I'm not sure what my game plan is going to be this year, because certainly for the MSI I was struggling a little bit keeping up with the Pentanet games going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I was. At least that's the thing about it being in China. For it's in a similar time zone to Australia, so that's would be nice, but unfortunately not meant to be.
No.
But in the end,
But
sending peace, all our best hopes and wishes as the Australian representative there.
yes, best of luck to those guys. I think they're going to rock it. You know, I think that every team is just building on the success of the last, and I have no doubt that Peace are going to do a fabulous job.
Yeah, that's it. When like a team goes away and gets that international experience and they come back the better for it, it just makes the region better.
Yeah, and I honestly, I put a lot of that kind of crescendo build, base that on the LCO and how that's all being managed and how that's being built up as well, because you're seeing players getting, I think, a bit more used to, you know, having to do interviews and having to be on the spot and getting in those regular competitive games against an increasingly competitive field of teams, like, you know, certainly having Babip and Callie back from the US really did make, I think, the difference with Peace making it through to the finals. So really exciting.
That's it. On to slightly less exciting news. We've had word in the last week or so about the CSGO scene locally here. Now, unfortunately, it started with Direwolves parting way with their teams, and they've taken this team is sticking together. They've changed their name to Looking for Org, and they're I know,
perfect.
It's great. But so they're still looking to compete, and they've taken great care to stress that it's not that they didn't get offered a contract, it's that they decided not to go with that contract. So it also sounds like Direwolves are still looking to field a CSGO team. A developmental team is what some of the things on Twitter I've been seeing about. But then you've got, in a few days later, Chiefs coming out and parting ways with their team as well, who've changed their name to LoL 123, which also sounds like a little bit of a placeholder name there. But
yeah, it's so good though.
Yeah. But
it's almost as good as Rufflecopter.
Almost. Yeah, almost it. But Chiefs themselves have said that they're not going to be investing in CSGO for a bit. And straight up in their press conference said reasons around that were COVID restrictions and not being able to host international events like IEM Melbourne, and also not being able to go to international events. And look, and of course, then you've also got Paradox as well that have just lost their team, and they qualified for the OCE League. So that one's going to be a bit fun to see how they cover that. Like, will second place from whatever tournament they run go into that, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're going to find out coming up. But I mean, I know that CSGO, especially in Oceania, has, you know, not had a smooth ride, especially last year and the beginning of this year with the players having to drop out due to being suspended due to the ESIC investigations that are going on, that are still, you know, not completely resolved in a way that everybody seems happy with. But also I think the lack of LAN events and tournaments where there's decent prize money makes a huge difference for these teams. If you're looking to invest in a team, but there's not opportunities for exposure and for your brands and for making money out of tournament prize money, then how can you afford to pay your players? How can you keep your org afloat? So I don't think any of these teams took these decisions lightly. But it does leave the CSGO scene in disarray. And
that's what I see more as the main issue, is that like other orgs have managed to pivot to an online competition, and then LCO we kind of hold up a bit, but that was sort of a different thing. And I feel after Riot cancelled the OPL, viewers and teams sort of rallied around the Australian scene a bit more and got that going again, to the point where they can have someone like DoorDash as a naming rights sponsor. But even things like World of Tanks and Rainbow Six Siege, they're still going. So what have those esports done that CSGO locally hasn't done to keep the prize money going and allow orgs to be able to afford these teams?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's Hussey in our chat has just mentioned about something that's obviously being rumored. We both Str8 and I were looking for kind of a source to confirm this or not, but we certainly don't want to name any specific orgs. But there has been a lot of discussion about can these teams afford can these orgs afford these teams and pay them fairly, which is also another discussion of whether these players are being incentivized to stay on and keep playing, or should they go and work at Macca's?
And does it come down to the league themselves? Not like, because we last nuts and bolts, we went through a whole heap. There was a report that had come out about how esports can sort of market themselves to attract sponsorship and stuff like that. And is it like that sort of stuff, like these orgs really need to take on board? So, well, not even so much the orgs, but the leagues themselves, just to make sure that they can play these players. There's enough prize money up that orgs can afford to pay their players a decent rate. And we're not talking like just paying $300 a week or whatever it is, because you need to be able to pay them a wage to live on. Yeah, you can't just say, oh yeah, here's a little bit in bits and pieces to keep them happy. This is a legitimate sport, and we need to be able to pay our players that to reflect that it's legitimate.
I mean, I know it's been in the news and kind of criticised, but we kind of need a Gina Reinhardt backing our esports players.
We do.
Like at the moment, I just, despite the facts and figures that we were discussing last week, I don't think that the leagues themselves and the orgs are ready to, take on as many teams as they do. And even internationally, Jose's just mentioning as well, even where you do have more support for the orgs and for the leagues that are running, you still might not have players supported financially, where it could be their only income. So this is the whole, like, probably not something for today, but at some point, just having a big discussion of how we can make esports something that can continue to attract younger players, because who's going to come into esports with the money that's involved in it, when you could go get a internet security degree and be making quite a lot of money,
even go and work at McDonald's. Like when I was 20 working at McDonald's, I was getting a couple $100 a week, and if you're getting $400 a month, $500 a month, why would you put all that time and extra effort into learning an esport when you can go and work a retail job or a fast food job and get more money?
Absolutely a discussion that needs to be had, and something that I think that there are groups working on in Australia, but
it takes a long time. Like even as recently as the 90s in AFL, like players had another job or a career, like John Worsfold's a qualified chemist, and he was the Eagles captain and Eagles coach and Essendon coach and all sorts. And when he started out his football career, he still had to have another job.
Yes, so I have absolute optimism that we will get there.
Cool.
I have absolute optimism about that.
So, just before we move on to some World of Tanks stuff, because that returned last Friday night, we got some good stuff to get into there. I do want to quickly mention the LPL Valorant Oceania League kicked off tonight. I did see their channel went live not long before we started, so if that's something you're into, give them a watch. Obviously not right now because you're watching us, but go check them out, watch the VOD, and show them some love.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be really exciting. I love all the support coming out for for Valorant, hopefully that can keep building as an esport in Australia as well, because it's, it's a good game, and I think that, Riot working well to build it into a competitive esport. So yeah, jump on board.
Cool. And now we get into some World of Tanks news. I get excited about this because I absolutely love World of Tanks. It's like, for me, it's a fairly easy esport to get into because it's tanks shooting other tanks. And even if you don't, like, there are different model tanks that do different things, have different armor, have different fire rates and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's tanks shooting other tanks. So I find it's quite easy to get into. The barrier to entry is quite low. And this is season 3 of ANZPL. So let's have a quick look at some of the rule changes. So this year, the games have been increased in duration from 7 minutes to 8 minutes. And even from just the one round that I've watched, that seems to be an improvement, because a lot of times last year, the attacking teams just sort of seemed to run a little bit short on time. And that one extra minute just seemed to make a little bit of difference there. And so you were finding the defensive teams were actually having to have a decent strategy instead of just setting up and blocking out the enemies and just having to outlast them. So that extra minute does seem to be working well. Also, for those that pay attention, season 2 was very much a let's 2-2, as in let's draw. So now if a team ends up in a draw, because it's a best of 4 series, if it ends up in 2-2, they go to a tiebreaker, which is great. It means there's going to be a result, and it means that you've got a little more breakdown of the points, because there was a glut in the final round last year where mathematically every team could make the finals still. There were 8 teams, top 4 play finals, and even the last place team could make finals if it all went their way. Yeah, so it does make for an exciting round. But by doing the 3 points for an outright win, 2 points for a tiebreaker win, 1 point for a tiebreaker loss, and no points for a loss, it will separate out the pack a bit more, I think.
It definitely is more reward, and hopefully will create some more dynamic and risky plays, maybe, to try and secure that extra point for an outright win. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. And like it was very exciting last week. So also we've got the results.
This makes me cry.
I know. We had to wait last season until I think it was the last round to get our first 4-0 win, and we get it in the first round tonight at the expense of Natty's Action X, but it's okay. My Perth Panthers didn't fare much better there.
Well, I'm kind of thinking, looking at it, all the places in, lockdown did better than places that weren't. So maybe that's what it was. More
time for scrims, you reckon?
Yeah. All of our players were out running at the beach or something.
Cool. Question from Itzazi in chat there about why they don't make it best of 5 or 3. So the way that the World of Tanks ANZPL works is that you have attack and defend on a map and attack and defend on a second map. So I think that the idea was to make it so that you had the attack and defend on both maps so that it was fair, because the one map was one team's choice and one map was another team's choice. So they decided to just have it best of 4. And initially they liked the idea of draws, but after last season, when there was just so many draws, I think there was something like 6 rounds in a row that were all draws at one point, from one week to the next, which doesn't make for it. It sort of leaves a bit of a hollow feeling after a while. But this season they've gone, let's do it this way. And you would have seen as well, like there was rules. Hang on, let me just bring it up again, about like the tiebreaker. So you can see that tiebreaker map is selected from the map pool and changes each week. It's locked in pre-season. This season, hang on. I sort of had some rules there around like who got to choose whether they went attack or defend, but that is not in there. But also, one thing I forgot to mention is this season the map Ruinberg is out and Tundra has come in. We saw our first game on Tundra last week, so that was nice.
Did they give a reason for why they took out? They did a swap, or it's just something they normally do just to mix things up?
Well, I think the team captains just had a bit of a vote, and that's what it says here. The season team captains voted. So it might have just been which map don't you like and which map would you like to be brought in, just to keep things fresh. So teams have to come up with some new strategies and things like that. So it's keeps it fresh and interesting, I think.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that it gives the teams a bit more agency and strategy as well. So
yeah. So you would see in the results as well, we actually did have our first tiebreaker in the second game. And I want to show you a bit of a clip because this is the reason why we went to a tiebreaker. So this is the game between the Sentinels and Matildas.
He wants to just wait patiently, so he's not going to be going for that
just
cross.
Watch these two tanks.
Hang on, it's like a little bit of a boost coming through for
so
speed in that Kronberg.
What's happened there
you can get that up the hill,
is Cindy's push speeds
it has been spotted though,
tank up the hill, which is
so
not allowed. It's against the rules. If they'd driven up the hill, it would have been fine. But because they chose to push each other up the hill, that was not allowed. So unfortunately, Sentinels got disqualified for that particular round, which would have seen them go 2-0 up on a change to their own map, I think. Because I think the map that this was being played on was the Matildas' choice, I think, from memory. So which would have put them in a great spot. Instead, it gives the game to Matildas and ends up in a draw, going to a tiebreaker, which Matildas won. So you could argue that one silly decision have cost Sentinels a game there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a shame. I wonder if it's just the players not being familiar or forgetting in the heat of the moment, or if they thought they might be cheeky and get away with it.
I think it was they didn't know or hadn't read the rules properly, because there was a bit of chatter afterwards. Speed in particular was going, why is that wrong? Why can't I do that? But other players I've spoken to have gone, yeah, no, that's not right. And even in Twitch chat straight away as it was done, it was going, no, that's not right. You can't do that. Unfortunately, it ended up from my point of view, ended up costing Sentinels the match there, and they take a tiebreaker loss in that first round. Cool. So not much to see on the ladder. As you can see, Brisbane Bulldogs with their 4-0 win are sitting on top of the ladder, followed by Auckland Archers and South Sydney Skorpions sitting in equal second there. It doesn't show it, but there is the I forget the word now, but the basically round differential. So like, because Bulldogs had a 4-0 win and Skorpions and Archers had a 3-1 win, that's why Bulldogs are top and Archers and Skorpions are second. And then Matildas with their tie win and Sentinels with their tied loss. And then followed by the Conquerors and Panthers, who had their 3-1 losses, and poor old Adelaide Action X on the bottom there. But that's it. They're the strongest team in the league. That's it. And it is only the first round, so it's not like first round's not really indicative, I find, of anything that you watch. You do have to make sure that you get going fairly quickly, though, because a lot of these seasons don't go for super long, and you got to make sure that you get in there and hit everything that you need to hit to make finals. And it's going to be hard. Like the Bulldogs and the Skorpions in particular have Brisbane definitely have an unchanged roster, and Skorpions were going to have an unchanged roster, but a week or so ago they had to sub someone out and bring somebody else in, so their lineup is virtually unchanged.
Yeah, I did want to ask you about that, because I wondered how that affected placing for this first game. The teams that were faster out the blocks, were they the ones that had their teams from same teams as last season?
Well, I know the Panthers had a fair bit of changeover in their teams, because I think they had 3 draft picks for their 7 spots, so that's almost half your team there that you've swapped over. And depending on how you look at it, because like you'll have some core players that you probably see, because you'll have maybe one or 2 players that might be sort of on the outer there, but generally you'll find the lineup stay pretty constant. So seeing the Panthers down there is not super surprising, especially considering they finished on the bottom at the end of last season. Action X though is a little bit surprising to see.
Unexpected. Yeah.
Well, for me it is a little bit, because like they did go out in the last round, so they didn't get to play finals, but they played well during the beginning and sort of middle part of the season. So I think it's a little bit surprising to see them take a 4-0 loss that early on. But like I said, Bulldogs I think are contenders there. And even like the Sentinels, they may have taken that tiebreaker loss, but they're still a good team, and they'll be looking to bounce back.
And they're still in the mix.
Yeah.
I know it's only the first round, but they're in the middle of the pack. So
hell, Bulldogs could lose this week, and Adelaide Action X could win, and all of a sudden they're on the same points. So it's
yeah.
Or Perth could win and go right up the top as well. Man.
Now, I know you did mention before that World of Tanks has a fantasy league.
They do. We're going to have a bit of a look at that. So if you haven't signed up, fantasytanks.com. It's good fun. I do like getting in there, and I'm a little bit annoyed at myself this week, because you can see here I'm 36, and J-rated is just... In fact, J-rated's on equal points as Maticus right there. But I need to beat J-rated. I don't care about anything else. I just need to beat J-rated. It's the only thing I want to do this season. And I think last season I was in front of him right until the last round, and that unfortunately he ended up beating me. So I need to redeem myself this season and get that.
What do you think about fantasy leagues with esports? Because obviously it's a thing that's happened with sports for a long time, but we're starting to see it a little bit more with esports. Do you find it helps you get a bit more invested in what's happening?
I do, and it helps you learn the players a bit more as well. Like you if we have a look at the players here and learn more about them and how they play and just how well they do. And one extra thing that the Fantasy League for World of Tanks has done this season is last season you could pick whoever you want. There was no restrictions on it. Also, the only restriction was you could only pick 2 players from the same team. So that restriction is still in this season, but they've also introduced star ratings for the players. So, and if you have a look here, you can only have 15 stars max in your team. So
you have to be strategic with who you pick.
That's it. So you can't pick all the like Russian here, who was the best last week with 354 points. Is a 5-star player, so you can't really you can only have 3 5-star players, and then your roster's no good anymore. But I guess I don't know if you have to fill out the full roster, or if you could just go with the 3 players if you wanted to. But I mean, yeah, that's a risky strategy doing that too.
I'll have to get into it. I've got a bad track history with the fantasy sports. I tried some NBA a couple of years ago and ended up with a whole team of point guards. So hopefully I can do a little bit better in World of Tanks.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And it's still a little bit of like I know a lot of these players, and on their day they can do well, but it also depends on what role they're playing in the team. Like one might be a lookout and just spotting things, so they won't get any damage in that match, but they'll be the ones that have opened up all the vision for everything. So it's it's not as like they measure it through damage output. I think pretty much that's one of the main ones. If we have a look, or is this just going to show us it? Yeah, so you can see here. No, it doesn't give you a lot of. It shows you the tanks that he's played and the average. Okay, so there is a sort of way that they're measuring points. Isn't just based solely on damage by the look of it. So it's depending.
We might need to get a breakdown from
I
an expert.
I think we might need to. I might need to have a chat with Jake and see what we can sort out there. But
we need a stats man on.
That's it. We get a stats man. But 36, not too bad overall. My guys did reasonably, except for Toasted. I'm not sure why I put Toasted in there, but Archers, they did well. I just I think I picked the wrong player that was going to play, because he only played one game out of their 4. So, but this week I've gone with Lightning Man from the Perth Panthers. He had for having a 3-1 loss. Lightning Man did pretty well last week, so we're keeping him in there. Mary Turnip from the Melbourne Matildas. Wimo or Wimo, one of those. Even the casters can't decide how his name. I don't think even he can decide how his name is said. From the Sentinels, AVP from the Bulldogs, and Knight from the Skorpions as well. So, and then of course my subs, I've got Speed from the Sentinels and Saxon from the Melbourne Matildas as well. So I
noticed there's a distinct lack of Adelaide players in there.
Well, maybe they should just play better then. But yeah,
cold out. That's like good next week.
That's it. So you've got until just before the game start on Friday to get your picks in. So get them done right now. So but for us, here's the games for next week. So starting at 6:00 Australian Eastern Standard Time. We've got the Bulldogs versus the Scorpions. So that will be a damn good game, I reckon. That's going to be a tightly fought one, especially with the Bulldogs coming off a big win, and the Scorpions are always exciting to watch to play. The Sentinels and the Conquerors, I think the Sentinels should win that one. That should be their one to go there. Archers versus Panthers. I'd like to say the Panthers here, but I don't know. One might be a bit of a coin toss. Yeah, bit of a spoonerism happening there. And in the last game, Melbourne Matildas and Adelaide Action X. Matildas coming off their tiebreaker win where they managed to bring it back. I think they've just got a little bit more gumption and experience there than Action X has. So I think the Matildas will come off with the win there.
Yeah, cool. A bit of momentum as well doesn't hurt.
That's right. Cool. Well, that's pretty much all we've got for the live content for you tonight. But we're going to leave you with an interview I did today with JT, who's the captain of the South Sydney Skorpions, where we have a bit of a chat about last week's game and the rule changes that have happened. So I hope you enjoy it. Afterwards, I'll be back playing some games. I'll probably be playing Splitgate since we've got our tournament coming up on the 24th of September. So you can sign up for that if you're keen to get in some Splitgate action. But other than that, we will Nuts and Bolts will be back next week.
See you, Jim.
Bye.
Good night, everyone. Bye.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Nuts and Bolts, Game On Aus's weekly esports podcast. And tonight we're lucky to be joined by JT from World of Tanks ANZPL Season 3, captain of the Skorpions. So thank you so much for joining us today, JT.
Oh, thanks for having me, mate.
Anytime.
Good to be here. Yeah,
glad to have you back. And see that you started off with a win, so that's good. A 3-1 win over Panthers, which it was an interesting game for me, especially with that WZ132 tank strat you guys pulled out. That was an interesting one. What was the idea behind those tanks?
Yeah, I mean, I may have been teasing it around between a couple people, Jay Rated and some of the commentators. I've got something special for proc defense, and I mean, we kind of were testing it last season with double light tank on defense. I think it's actually. It seems kind of weird because it started as double T100. Obviously, T100 if you see a light tank, it's usually T100 and 5v5. And you basically just take all the map control on proc straight away because, even if they do have one light tank, I mean, you're always going to take the opposite side of the map for free with your second light tank, even if your light tank is contesting theirs. And then we basically came to the conclusion that since we're running double light tank, you know, we're already down a lot of firepower. The WZ-132 is basically, it's a worse light tank than what the T100 is, but it's better at shooting things. It's slightly more accurate. It has slightly worse DPM, but the gun handling is the main component that we were worried about, because T100 is just not very good at shooting things at the best of times. So, like I said, once we have, it doesn't even matter about the light tank stats, because once we see what side of the map they're on, the other tank, it doesn't need the extra camo, it doesn't need the extra speed. It kind of just, as you saw in the games, we just drove behind them uncontested. Like, our light tank characteristics didn't matter apart from our shooting thing. So that's the whole idea behind the 132s. Yeah.
Nice. And it did go very well for you early on, like Knight getting that shot onto Lightning Man that basically took him out of the game. Like, he survived for a long time into it, but he had no impact on it because he got down to like 63 health left and just couldn't get into the game at all. Yeah,
well, I heard, you know, I rewatched the games, obviously. I heard some of the commentators saying that, you know, Knight's running some kind of crazy spotting setup, but in actuality, I mean, Lightning Man kind of just didn't really play the light tank very well. He kind of drove through a gap that's very notorious for the light tank getting spotted, and Knight was pre-aiming there because, you know, nothing else for him to aim at. So, you know, he was looking there, and we got a lot of damage for free. And I mean, at the end of the day, it really wouldn't have changed anything if that light tank was full health. At least, in our opinion, it wouldn't have. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, he's kind of just gifted it to us on a silver platter. We were so surprised when it happened. We were like, what is this guy doing? Like, Knight's like, oh, I just shot this guy for like 800 damage, like, GG. So yeah, it was a good time.
I was wondering myself whether it might have just been a blind fire going, well, they normally run down that line, so let's just do a blind fire and see what happens. But no,
yeah, I mean, like I said, we had the light tanks all the way down the other side of the map. There's only one place their tanks could be. We saw the S-Conk in mid, so obviously the other four are on the one line. So Knight was pre-aiming the right spot. Our S-Conks were ready. As soon as something get lit, they were ready to shoot. And I'm kind of surprised that Lightning Man didn't actually completely die, but at the same time, I mean, going down to 50 HP is not really any different.
Yeah, he may as well have been dead at that point. It was too. He had no real impact on the game, even if I don't think it was the first tank that went down, but yeah, he just had no impact on the game.
Yeah.
So with that 3-1 win puts you, I think, equal second on the ladder with, was looking at this earlier, but I think equal second on the ladder behind the Bulldogs, who had a 4-0 win there. And just coincidentally, both yourself and Bulldogs are the two teams that had unchanged lineups from Season 2. So how's that aided you in your prep?
Well, we did actually have one roster change right in the week before the matches. A bit of an unprecedented thing that happened that was a little unfortunate. I'm not going to go into too much details, but we had to bring someone in from the draft that wasn't drafted. I think we got an extremely good pickup in Raspberry Soda that honestly I thought would be gone in the second or first round of the draft. But he never got picked, so I was like, okay, that's kind of bit troll. We pinched him away. He was going to be the observer for this season. We pinched him away. But in terms of coming in with the same roster, I think just especially when you make a lot of roster changes, such as like teams like the Conquerors, you know, there's a lot of teams that have made one change or none, which is, I think, the difference between changing one player and changing 0, especially if it's not one of the core 5. It's basically non-existent. It's basically no different. But when you keep the roster together, you can always, you know, you can go back to stuff that you'd already practiced last season. You don't have to start from scratch, basically. Whereas, you know, a team like that replaces 5 members, for example, might, like, they're starting building blocks from all over from the start. You know what I mean? So, you know, it helps us in terms that we have these really basic strategies, you know, what we would call, like, I don't know, our default strategies that we were running last season kind of thing. And we can start, you know, evolving them just like we were at the end of last season, but we can, you know, keep that progression without slowing it down going into season 3. And I mean, it's the same for Bulldogs. It's going to be the exact same situation. They're going to have the strategies that they ran last season that they all know off by heart, and then they're just going to have, you know, because they have those defaults to fall back on, they can already start experimenting with new stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And that's it. That's the benefit of having the same sort of lineup there, is that you know the strategies, you know each other, you know the plays that you're likely to make, and you've got that communication already there. And especially between yourself and Bulldogs, you guys have been good teams for the last since the inception of the ANZPL. So keeping those rosters the same will definitely help you going forward. And hopefully we'll see a new person or a new team win the ANZPL this season and knock Sentinels off. Yeah.
I mean, Sentinels are a strong team. I think that, you know, some would say that they upgraded their roster. Some would say they downgraded. You know, they lost a good player in Rowandy, but they got a good player in Speed. So,
yeah,
I think Sentinels are a very momentum-based team. So, you know, if the season starts pretty poorly for them, could be not looking great. But if the season, you know, goes well, then, you know, they could be coming back to be the strongest team going into the finals again. So,
well, that's it. And I think in the end they were a little bit not unlucky, but I would say one poor decision, I think, derailed that game for them there. That's it's yeah.
I mean, it's not really luck when it's in the
rules,
but
that's it. Yeah, that's why I said not luck, but just one poor decision just like swung the tide against them and gave us our first tiebreak of the season, which was actually pretty cool to see. So I did want to talk about the rule changes a little bit, because there's a couple of big ones that we've seen come in, and we'll talk about the tiebreaker firstly. Now, we saw a lot of draws last season, and it did make the ladder very compact, to the point where I think the start of the last round, any team could mathematically make finals, although some more likely than others. But this year with the tiebreaker, I think we're going to see a lot more separation in those points.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think even since season 1, most of the teams wanted tiebreakers. It was a bit of a hard thing to bring in on Wargaming side, from my understanding. So, I mean, it's great that we have it now, and also battle format going from 7 to 8 minutes also helps teams on maps that are harder to attack, such as like Sand River and Muravanka and stuff like that. You know, teams won't be YOLOing to their death, where it's like going to be a 90% victory for the defense because the attacking side has literally no idea how to play the map. If they try and play it spread out and slow, like, there's just not enough time to do that. And I mean, we were probably the team that got in strife with using our time on attack the most in season 2. I mean, we timed out, I don't know, like 4 or 5 games on our attacks and just lost purely on time just because there's not enough. So the increase to 8 minutes is really good. Tiebreak is really good. I think it's going to benefit some teams a lot more than others. I think that the teams that, even though there was a lot of draws last season, I think that, like you said, the separation will happen a lot more naturally, I would imagine, in season 3. At the same time, though, I mean, 5v5 is a very topsy-turvy format, so I mean, the ladder could be close. It could just be, you know, a lot of teams winning on tiebreakers, and then not really any. Maybe like we have 2 teams down the bottom, but the middle and top of the pack is very, very compact still. But at the same time, we could have, you know, 2 top dogs and then middle of the pack and then 2 at the bottom kind of thing. So
yeah, might get a lot of people clutching out those wins on the tie breaks.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, you know, it's already predetermined what map it is for the tiebreaker that week. So it's an imperfect system, but I think I mean, the way it is definitely a lot better than what it was. But at the same time, you know, if you have your hardest match of the season and it's on a, you know, the tiebreaker map is the map that is your favorite map and the enemy's least favorite map, you should have a pretty clear advantage, right? And vice versa. If it's their favorite map and your least favorite, you know, even if you get the favorable side, maybe you never play that map normally anyway. So it's an interesting one, but all in all, I'm very happy with the changes. I think that it's going to be really good for the league, great for the viewers. No more 2-2s
Yep.
without a conclusion at least. So yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah, no, I think that's going to be a lot more exciting for players and for the viewers as well. Just like it did feel a bit of a less exciting when it came to all those draws. So we're happy to see them change to a result. So but yes, next up, you and the Bulldogs are first up for this Friday's game. So this one's going to be an interesting one. Bulldogs coming off a 4-0 win. I think you guys got the only 4-0 win of last season as well. So there's but that came in like the second last or last round, I think.
Week 6.
Yeah. So to get one in week 1, that's a pretty big advantage, I think, for Bulldogs. So how do you think you're going to go against them?
Well, I will say that I think that the 4-0s are a lot less impactful this season than last season. In the last season, the 4-0 we got was really important just because there was no tiebreakers and because the ladder was so close going into the end. You know, a lot of teams had, going into that last week, there was a lot of opportunities for it to come down to battles for and battles against. And obviously, you know, if two teams fighting for the spot have 2 wins, and one team has 2 3-1s and one team has a 4-0 and a 3-1, obviously the team with the 4-0 and 3-1 are going to progress. It's the same this season, but there should be more separation, like I was just speaking about with you a moment ago, just purely because of tiebreakers. So I know that, well, I would assume that maybe Archers kind of let off the gas in the final game, you know, when they're up 3-0. I know we kind of let off the gas because, in my opinion, I think it's better to maybe preserve some strategies rather than going for a 4-0, especially this early in the season. Yeah, but Bulldogs are looking strong. I mean, I think it's proven, you know, I think a lot of people think that Bulldogs and Skorpions, maybe not the weakest, but definitely middle of the pack rosters on papers in season 1 and 2. And I mean, I think Skorpions and Bulldogs as well have both showed that, you know, us and them have both been very strong, very consistent teams at least. So yeah, should be a really, really good game to watch. Maybe have some more strats up the sleeve, some more tanks that no one's ever seen. Who knows? But yeah, it should be
not bringing out the VZ55.
I mean, maybe. I think VZ is a great tank, but I don't know if people are using it to its strengths exactly, rather than just kind of the shell shock of, oh, this tank is so cool, let's just bring 2 of these. It does all this damage. It's kind of fast.
Yeah, they're new and shiny rather than actually having a good strategy for it just yet.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's a tank that has very strong strength and very weak weaknesses. So, but I think that, you know, from what we've seen in the last match day and on our end in scrims, a lot of teams are kind of just trying to feel it out by just, you know, using them constantly. And the problem with that is, you know, you can have great games, you can have bad games, but just because you're winning with it doesn't always mean that it's, you know, the best thing. You know what I mean? So
time will tell, I guess. Good. We'll see how that goes along there. Definitely. Lastly, are you doing Fantasy League this year?
Listen, my week 1 fantasy did not go well. I picked myself. Big mistake. Yeah, week 1 did not go well for me. That was atrocious. I played like absolute garbage. It's karma for picking myself, but I mean, hey, Skorpions had two top fantasy. Our 5-star and one of our 3-stars both top of the fantasy. So I mean, if you're not picking Russian and Aussie, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm definitely playing it. I think that some of the star ratings are a little bit questionable. You know, some people shouldn't be at the top. I mean, after week 1, I shouldn't be a 5-star, that's for sure. So, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely fun seeing all the rankings, and I believe they're going to be adjusted mid-season as well. So it should be lots of fun.
And I like the star system now, because I must admit, myself last season with the Fantasy League, I was just picking randomly picking some of the top players and whatnot.
I think a lot of people
yeah. So now you have to balance out. You can't just pick all the good players all the time. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all balances out.
I actually think it's really good. I mean, it's not going to really change too much about the, the better players or the top players in fantasy, but like you said, you kind of have to mix and match with the stars now. So you have to pick some 2 stars, some 1 stars if you want to pick double 5-star, stuff like that. And it's really going to show who, the people that do have those lower rankings that maybe didn't play as much, or maybe they underperformed a bit in season 2, down from 3 to 2 and 1-star players, like the ones, it's going to become very apparent who's the better players in the mid and lower echelons, right? And when the star adjustments happen later in the season, I mean, it's going to be, maybe some people will be eye-open, be like, oh, man, maybe this guy's a bit of a sleeper pick. Like, this guy's playing way better than what anyone thought. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see how everybody goes next week. So tune in Friday nights from 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, World of Tanks ANZ on Twitch. JT, thank you so much for joining me. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Good luck in your game.
Thank you.